Satnam, everyone, and welcome to this little podcast about the level 1 immersion in India that is coming up. Because we've had so many questions from participants and people who are interested, we wanted to make sure all the information is available for all of you, and that you also get a chance to meet us trainers. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Sukhdev Kaur Khalsa, and I'm originally from Mexico, living in Estonia for the past 20 years and sharing these teachings of Kundalini Yoga here in Eastern Europe and Mexico, Brazil, and India through Midipidi Academy. So it's my honor and pleasure to be with you, to walk on this journey together. And this is part of my passion. I started when I was a teenager practicing Kundalini Yoga. Somehow I told my mother I wanted to do yoga. Nobody in my family even knew what yoga was. So somehow in my mind, I picked up this information. I told my mother when I was around 16. And so the first thing that she found was Kundalini Yoga. And from the moment that I arrived in the class, I got hooked. It was so unique, so different, so strange. And also it created such a nice feeling within myself that I started going to classes. And then within 1 or 2 years, I went to this level 1 teacher training. That was back in Mexico. And since then, I moved to Europe. And besides my professional career in architecture and urban studies, I put everything aside when my first son was born, and I dedicated my life to the teachings. It really is such an inspiring set of knowledge, and it's not only knowledge that you get in your brain, but it's really experience of who you are, and it has transformed me. I wouldn't be the person I am if it wasn't because of these teachings. And I know so many people around the world that have been transformed and touched very, very deeply. Because one of the things that these teachings give you is the ability to understand who you are, to consolidate your identity in your, you can say, divine self, higher self, soul, that whatever you do, wherever you are, you can be confident in yourself. You can have an intuition to know what is the next step to do in your life. And you can experience life fully in its wonderful play that it is. So cutting this short, we have here some of the teachers that are going to be part of the training. And we will give each other little introductions about how we made it to this path, what inspired us to Kundalini Yoga. And Yogi Bhajan didn't want to come to the West and gather students, but his vision, his idea was that he wanted to create more teachers. And this is the core, the basis for the training, that all of his path, 50 years, he was sharing.
My journey in Kundalini Yoga began when I was quite young, in my late teens. I was living as a hippie in the woods of Maine, and it's a long story, but to make the story short, we were doing Hatha Yoga and heard about this, what was considered a new kind of yoga on the scene, called Kundalini Yoga, and there was going to be an intensive on it in the south of Maine. So we got in our van and we drove down and arrived at this farmhouse. And in those days, people saw yoga as a way to get high, like you would on drugs or something. So it was a way to kind of experience something different. And so the yoga was very, very extreme. I thought we were doing these funny exercises, doing them for very long times. I remember we were doing this bowing yoga mudra for like 31 minutes, and it was extremely painful, running in place, breath of fire for 11 minutes, which I remember passing out on the floor. So it was very extreme. I thought it was a little bit out there, but every night we would get in the yurt and we would sit in a circle, and this one guy played guitar. He knew 2 or 3 chords, knew 1 or 2 chants, and we would just sit and chant and sing the whole night. And so that's what really caught my attention, caught my interest. And after about, I remember we took a yoga set home to practice, which was the spinal flex. Right? That was pretty, I can say, normal or accessible yoga set that I could relate to, and long Ekankars. And we took that back to our place and practiced it. And after about a month, I decided I wanted to experience more of this type of yoga. So then I traveled to Washington, D.C. They had just opened a restaurant. You could work there and live in the ashram. And so I hitchhiked down from Maine to Washington, and and just walked into the ashram, said, here I am. And Yogaji was there that weekend actually teaching, so I got to go to a couple of his classes. And since that day, I've always been involved in 3HO and at the ashram or in various places in the world. And my specialization has been in the side of Nad Yoga, the yoga of sound, how chanting affects our brain chemistry, affects our immune system, affects our entire being and our frequency, basically. And so I've practiced the music, studied Indian music, and studied all of Yogaji's teachings about sound and frequency and mantra and how it works. And so that's what I'll be teaching in this teacher's training course at Miripiri. Rabab is a very ancient instrument from the subcontinent of India and Pakistan, Afghanistan, and that area. And like all Indian instruments, it has what are called sympathetic strings. So they're strings that we don't play on, but they vibrate with whatever we're playing on the playing strings. These strings vibrate according to acoustic resonance. Whatever frequency you play on a playing string, these strings start to sing. So it gives it a very unique sound. And the human body actually works in a similar way, that when we vibrate in our Shushmana, it vibrates the Ida, Pingala, and all the nadis of the body. So the actually human body works as a musical instrument, basically works like a rabab works. So I've always been attracted to that instrument. And also because Guru Nanak used to travel around with a friend of his from his village that he grew up in. His name was Mardana. He was a Muslim singer, basically from a family in the village. And so he and Guru Nanak were friends, and they used to travel. Guru Nanak used to travel around and teach. And Mardana used to go with him and play this rabab, and Guru Nanak would sing the teachings. And so I became interested in that instrument because of that connection with Mardana. And searched, I bought many rababs and practiced with different teachers and learned in different ways how to play it. But I also play almost anything with strings, guitars of various types and tunings, and mandolin and sitar, and I studied many Indian instruments, also dilruba, sitar, tabla, harmonium, of course. It's the home of the Sikh gurus who were masters of Nad Yoga, and so it's amazing to be there and to walk in the places and go to the places that they lived and taught, and the traditions there that have been passed down over the times. Very beautiful to see that firsthand. And to practice teacher's training there, I think, is a very powerful way to experience it. Also, Miripiri Academy is quite beautiful place. It's a little sanctuary in the middle of the chaos and hubbub of India, you can say. It's beautifully landscaped, has nice lawns and places and beautiful gurdwara and places to sing and to do yoga. And it has amazing sound current around it because you can hear these different temples and gurdwaras in all different positions around it. So in the morning you hear kirtan coming from and japji being read from different gurdwaras in different places. Also Hindu mandiras are around too. So you hear a variety of sound currents that come in. It's very powerful, actually, sound current to be in, to experience. So that's quite unique into that area. Yeah, also it's it's very close to the Golden Temple in Amritsar, so it's nice to go in there and experience that, and do seva there to help clean the dishes, for instance, or clean the parikrama, and just experience that aspect of what's called seva, to do some service. So all these things are unique to India, and I think it's going to be a very powerful place to do an intensive course at the level 1, which is a very powerful course in and of itself. Well, just traveling together in India creates a nice bond between the people that are traveling together and experiencing things, and you have time to discuss spiritual concepts that come up, and the places you visit are historical and they have spiritual meanings and things that happened there, which are always fun to tell those stories and hear those stories. And it's also, sometimes we do have the opportunity to sing mantra and to sing shabads in those places also. There's possibility to even go to the ashram of Baba Siddhi Chand, who was a great yogi. He was Guru Nanak's son, and he was a very special yogi who lived a very, very long time. And you can go there and sit around. They have a fire that's been burning there for hundreds of years. You can go and sit around that fire and play kirtan, do chants that Baba Siddhi Chand used to chant himself. So there's this type of historical perspective, and the atmosphere that's created, and you see the devotion and the people that come to these places. It's very unique. It's an experience you cannot have in the West, actually. So, and it creates quite a bond between those of us who travel together there. So it's a beautiful concept, and we're very lucky to have Miriperi as a place as a sanctuary, basically, to be there and practice. It's a place of peace, and India's a bit chaotic, sometimes a little bit noisy, and so Miriperi is really this beautiful spot, really a gem. And the kids are fantastic, the kids that go there. So we get to interact with them as well on a certain level.
So Satnam, my name is Guru Jaswant, and some of you may know me, some of you may not know me. I actually grew up under the community that Yogi Bhajan had founded in the US. And so I grew up in an ashram being a gathering of like-minded individuals, kind of like what we're going to be doing in the level 1. We'll kind of create our own mini ashram. And ashram is actually a root word that is coming from the sense of shelter and a place of like peaceful, sort of reflective energy. So the idea is that we're all going to gather together in a similar way of how I grew up. In a similar way, we're going to gather together to experience being together, experience learning together, and share different experiences together. So we kind of create a very beautiful space. So that's basically also how I grew up, in a space that was really beautiful. It was in Espanola, New Mexico, in the US. And I really loved kind of growing up there, being outside, having different community things happening around me all the time. We would gather often. We would do langar, which is the free kitchen. We would do meditation together. We had classes, courses, and then I studied in India after that. So in my young childhood, I was in the States, and then I went to India. And in India, we studied more about the Sikh Dharma in the school that I attended. So then I started to kind of get more of a foundation of what the Sikh spiritual practices are. And it didn't really connect to me for a very long time that Sikh Dharma and yoga were actually connected. But then I've realized, through a series of different experiences I've had and different challenges that I've faced, that I've understood a lot more what that connection is. And to me, basically, the connection is that Sikh Dharma is actually a practice, a practical way of living. And so, the same thing with yoga, it's a living and it's a way of connecting. And so Sikh Dharma helps you to practice in a way that helps you connect. So whether it's connecting inside, whether it's connecting with your community, it's different practices that help you do that. And yoga is also a very similar and really the same kind of practice, which is to connect you to yourself, to connect you to your environment, to help you have peace and neutrality in whatever setting you're doing. So that's what I gained from it. So studying in India, and then I went back to the States. I had university in the States. I even went to military school for a year. So a lot of different sort of places that I studied and lived in shaped, those formation of how all those ideas are connected for me. And so what I'm excited to share about is about, well, of course, it can be partly my personal journey, but also just how really yoga teachings, Sikh Dharma teachings, spiritual teachings are all just teachings and tools to help us live our life the best we can. It's never intended to change us and to change us in a sense of like, you're not okay as you are, you have to become something else. It's always to help us to have any change that we need to help us be more excellent. So it's kind of like we often think that we're like broken in a sense, or something's not working for us, or, we have a lot of thoughts that are run through our mind, like our depressions or our different anxieties and things that happen in the world as we live it. But really, like, what we're trying to just get back to is like, how do we become more balanced? How do we stay balanced? How do we stay in our neutral state? How do we see and help ourselves move towards that excellence? So I love all the practices actually in the teacher training, but I specifically love the ones that help us to do that. And I believe I'll be teaching on the connection between Sikh Dharma and Kundalini Yoga. I'll be talking about yoga philosophy, which was great because I didn't actually learn a lot of yoga philosophy as I grew up. I actually tended to study, normal academics, and I had some yoga practice and we had some Sikh Dharma stuff, but we didn't really actually go into the history. So I really love learning more as I share about it as well. And just how deeply rooted and ancient the teachings are. And so people had all these experiences over the centuries, and often it was hidden. So it was only taught to people who were in a certain stage of life or had given a certain commitment. And now it's available openly for everyone. So I really love being a part of sharing that. What is all of our birthright is to have access to that and to be able to be that excellent person. So I really enjoy sharing that in the teacher training, any of the practices really. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. Look forward to being with all of you. Satnam. Okay, first of all, I just have to say, when I go to India, it's very overwhelming. There's no doubt that it's overwhelming, but I have this sense of like happiness and peace when I get there, which is really crazy because it's a very hectic environment. The streets are crazy. There's like dogs running around. There's people honking all over the place, people walking in the roads. There's poverty. There's great beauty also. There's riches. There's everything there. And it's all in one place often. So what I find is that there's a lot of like turmoil that's around me, and I actually feel more peaceful inside when I'm there. So I love India, just kind of connecting to that peace, even with the excitement outside. I also love the spaces, like there's just these beautiful environments. So like one environment is actually going to be where we're going to have the course, which is very peaceful. It's beautiful, soft in the morning, very quiet, just like amazing clarity. in the air. It's very kind of totally different from the rest of India. So that's a very beautiful sacred environment. And then we also have the ability to interact with the other sacred environments. And I love that. Like there's many different places of religious and spiritual practice in the area, besides like the Golden Temple or City Harmandir Sahib, which is right nearby as well. We'll be going there as well. But there's also many other places where people have a spiritual tradition. And so it brings this energy to the environment that's very beautiful. And it's kind of cool too, even when you go out in the chaos and you have to interact and you have to sort of stretch yourself and your personality, and in a positive way and sometimes a negative way, but in a way that makes you have to see your depth. And so I really love that about India. Oh yeah, and don't forget the food is awesome. And you have to help yourself not overeat. Yeah, I love that, I had this experience, and I won't go into it in very deep detail, but we stayed 1 year in a nivas in Paonta Sahib, which is where Guru Gobind Singh wrote the Jap Sahib. So it's a very kind of strong and sacred prayer from the Sikh tradition, and it's really designed to give you a feeling of energy and spirit. And so when we stayed in that nivas, or the rest house, we used to go to the town, and we would go and have really yummy gulab jamuns, which are these sweet treats. We would eat tons of them, and then we'd just kind of wander around the town. And my parents were also in town with me on that trip, and we went to these shops, and like we would just hang out with the shopkeepers, maybe buy something, maybe not, and they were always so loving. And so this one family, one of the shopkeeper family, they said, come to our house and have a meal. So we go to their house, they own this steel shop, and we go to their house, and it was so cozy and like totally tiny and like not great and huge at all, but it was just this beautiful devoted home. They had the guru there in their house. They had like an old auntie, the grandmother there, and she was making the dinner. And the family was just like so sweet, and they had so many questions, and they were just so full of love, cheerfulness, energy, and they had the devotion, and that, serving, and whatever they had, they gave us was so delicious. It was so devoted and loving in how they, and we actually didn't know a lot of Punjabi, or really very little, and they didn't know a lot of English, except the shopkeeper knew some. And so he was like translating the whole time with his family. But it was just the sweetest thing. So I just always remember that experience of like getting to interact when I was younger. And then of course, maybe over many years, I've had other beautiful experiences like that. But that was the first time that, I had actually been in someone's home in India. And it was just like they believe that when the guest comes, it's God. And so they serve you like you're just like this amazing, Raja or Rani, like a king or a queen. And it was just very beautiful.
My story starts really in 1973, when I had, kind of left school and left the political arena. It was a time of, tremendous upheaval in the USA with the Vietnam War and drug culture and everything else. And like many of my colleagues at the time that were part of the kind of the first wave of students, we were looking for another way forward, to provide some meaning in our life and to leave the kind of practices that we were engaged in at the time that weren't really helping us evolve as human beings. And I had a friend that was in the ashram, and I, wrote to her and asked her, where I could take a class in the New York City area, and told me about the Brooklyn ashram. I drove an hour to go to class, and I took one class and I was hooked. I felt the power of Kundalini Yoga, and I really never looked back. I just fell in love with the practice, and the rest, 50 years later, here I am, and I appreciated the practice of sadhana, which is really my real true love on this path, is the practice, and been very, diligent about practicing for the last 50 years. And hopefully I'll be able to share with you some of that inspiration, stories about the commitment I made and how that has carried me through all the ups and downs of life. In 50 years, you're going to have, triumphs and tragedies, periods of great joy and periods of sorrow, and how sadhana is the touchstone that no matter what you're experiencing, it's something that can, has carried me through, and I think can carry anybody through. It must be around 1975. And, Sri Singh Sub used to come to town to lead Tantra courses back in the day when he was leading them in person. And I remember he had come to Washington, D.C., and we had our course. And on Sunday, we have Gurdwara. And I'm standing in Gurdwara, and I'm looking around, I'm seeing all these people in white, all these people in turbans, and they're from all over the East Coast. And I'm thinking, Sri Singh Sub's there, and we're standing during the Ardas. And I'm thinking, wow, what a incredible reach Sri Singh Sub had. What a great man that he could inspire all these people to actually come all this distance to be together here. I mean, I thought that was phenomenal that, somebody had that ability. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm looking at him, I'm standing in front of the Guru, and I'm thinking, wow, I'm going to do sadhana. Just as I thought that, it was like an inspiration came to me, and I said, I'm going to do sadhana. And just as I said that, he turns around because he felt it or whatever, and looks at me and said, just to like seal the deal. And that commitment has carried me for 50 years. And I always remember that. I still remember it. And whenever I was tired or this or that, I remembered that I made that commitment in front of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib, in front of the Guru, in front of the satsang, in front of the spiritual teacher. And I have to maintain that. And that's what's really carried me through, like I said, birth of my children, the joy of that, the loss of my spouse to cancer, dealing with that sorrow, father dying in a car accident, great times of prosperity and wealth and periods of poverty, all the things that life throws at you. You have a friend in sadhana that can carry you across. And that's been my experience. And like I said, I have many stories about personal development of, meditative experiences, tantric experiences that I hope that I can share and maybe inspire some people the same way I was inspired to do a sadhana. It's 1993. I'm working in our family businesses. And we're struggling, we're having difficulty making payroll, and I'm working there and doing sales, and Sri Singh Sab's coming to town and, to teach. And so I make an appointment to go see him. And day finally comes, and he's sitting in the living room. I walk in, he motions me to sit down, and motions me to talk. And I say, sir, I want to talk to you about prosperity. Holds up his hand like this, and he goes, Guru Guru Wahe Guru, Guru Ram Das Guru, it's the secret to prosperity. And I go, chant it every day? And he goes, all day long. And he goes, any questions? I said, no. He said, good, you're all set. Teach the world. And then it was obvious the interview was over. So I go out of there. I am fired up. I know the secret to prosperity. And I'm chanting Guru Guru Wahe Guru, Guru Ram Das Guru all day long. It's, it's fantastic. money is going to rain down from the heavens. I'm going to be rich, yada, yada, yada. So driving my poor wife nuts, but I am chanting away because, I'm going to do it. So about 2 weeks go by, and our head of our ashram calls me into the office and goes, we have to let you go. There's no money to pay you. So I go, what? He says, you got to go out and find a job. So it's 1993. I'm wearing a turban. I haven't worked in the outside world for 20 years, basically. I've been working in family ashram businesses. So I'm trying to find a job. It's not that easy. So I finally find this job. It's selling credit card. I was in sales, credit card processing services door to door to stores in Georgetown, which is walking into stores trying to sell them these little machines for credit card processing. It's on commission only, no pay. It's just commission only. So I'm doing this for 2 weeks. I haven't made a sale. So I haven't made a dime. And I've got kids in India and school and mortgage, and my housemate is freaking out because I don't have any money. So it's a complete disaster. So I'm walking down the street and I'm going, I am really in trouble. But the language I used was more colorful. I'll not use that language for this audience, but I'm really messed up here. So, and just as I think that, I say, I'm not going to succumb to my fears. I'm going to use the technology to get me through this. I start chanting right on the street in Georgetown in Washington, D.C. And I feel this shift in my psyche. It's hard to explain, but I feel something happen in my psyche. And a couple of days later, I get this phone call from this guy I had met on the phone when I was doing my other sales job, and says, I'm starting a software company, a scientific software company. I need a marketing director. Can you do it? I said, sure. So I got this great job. And then I got a series of jobs. Guru Ganesh Singh, my good friend, got me a job with a professional software company. I did software sales. And then people in our ashram started these businesses in India, medical transcription, call center. I worked there. Then I worked for Siri Singh Sub Corp. So I've never really had an issue about prosperity since that moment. And what I interpret that to be is I was able to confront my fear about the universe not providing for me. And later I got a letter from Siri Singh Sub, which I think kind of encapsulates. He said, the great thing about being a student is that the faith becomes so strong that it alone can heal you and your pain. When a student bows in reverence and humility before a teacher, it is the power of their own faith that creates the miracle. The teacher is just the catalyst. So as teachers, we are catalysts, that everything you have is inside you. And our job as teachers is to awaken that potential within yourself, which is what happened to me. And that was a very profound experience. It's something I remember. And, I feel somewhat of an obligation to share that because you told me to teach the world about prosperity, which hopefully I'll be able to share some of that technology and some of those teachings with you.
So what I like about the teachings of Kundalini Yoga as taught by Yogi Bhajan is that it's not just for the yoga itself. It's not just for the practice of being in a mat and having a nice time during your session, but it really is about applying it to life. It's about learning what commitment is in yourself so that you can bring this to your work, to your family life, to your relationships, to your communication. It's about finding and practicing and living those higher values that you have, like dignity, integrity. What does it really mean inside of your body? So we're learning systematically all of these different parts of what it means to be a human. And human knowledge is one big part of this training, to learn how to really use all of the potential that you have as a human, raise your energy, your Kundalini, raise your awareness so that in your life, you'll live 100% using all of your abilities, not just being dragged by the time. Sometimes we feel life is too much. There's so many things that are expected from us outside work, life, family, jobs, and we need to pay things and we need to do this and that. And these teachings really change the perspective of how you can see things, that you can be ahead of the times. You can develop your intuition to know what's coming to you and act before the time is here. So as we are learning this, there is a lot of content that is going to be shared and learned. The training days are pretty full on, and it's going to be balanced also with process, so content and process, because once we are receiving all of this new information and this information that touches you, right, it goes deep within. We also need to process this. So the beauty of it is that we're going to be in India for around 3 weeks together, sharing these teachings, doing early morning sadhana, early morning practice, and then having discussions, and of course balancing this with some outings, because the beauty of this training, which is so peculiar, is that we will be doing all of this in the land where all of this came, where everything started. The Golden Temple of Amritsar is where the throne of Raj Yoga sits, and this was started by Guru Ramdas in order to create what you can call it chakra. That the Golden Temple is it's like going into the heart, going deep into your heart and taking away all the layers of pain, fear, hurt, insecurities that we have gathered around our heart. And it really is about seeing ourselves for the first time. It's a very, very deep place of bhakti yoga. Kirtan is being played there for all the hours of the day and night, and the Shabad Guru is resounding for 24 hours a day. The Shabad Guru is the sound current that changes, that transforms you. So your words, and this is one of the core of Kundalini Yoga, that sound and mantra, and your word is what transforms your world. Most of the mantras in Kundalini Yoga come from the lineage of the Sikh Dharma in Gurmukhi, the lineage of the 10 Sikh Gurus, which is those places that we're going to visit in north of India, where they were born and where they grew up and where all these places they built. And when we chant those words in those places, in the river where Guru Nanak was enlightened, or in the birthplace of the Khalsa in Anandpur Sahib that we are going to go, where Guru Gobind Singh created his army, it has such a special journey. It has such a special depth that pierces the heart and really touches in a much, much more profound way than doing any of this anywhere else in the world. Of course, I've been training teachers for decades as well, here in Estonia and in other places. And these teachings are so timeless and so universal that it doesn't matter where you take them, where you learn it, because it really is about going into the journey of your heart and journey into yourself. But the added on part is that when we are traveling together, bonding really within the India, in those places where these things happen, where these mantras appear, it's such a once in a lifetime opportunity Now, I do want to share a little bit about why we are offering this level 1 in India. So there's a few reasons here. Now, Kundalini Yoga, as taught by Yogi Bhajan in this tradition, the lineage of 3HO, is present in India through Miripiri Academy. So Miripiri Academy is this boarding school which was established in 1996, 1997 by the Sri Singh Sahib as a training ground for our school children. So it's a boarding school. It has been existing since then. And now in the recent years, we want to expand its scope to also serve adults through the continuing education courses, which this level 1 Kundalini Yoga Teacher Training is part of. Now, this level 1 is the beginning of the journey, is, you can say, the initiation, the self-initiation into going in depth into the wider scope of the teachings of Kundalini Yoga and Sikh Dharma. So this is sort of the door. The level 1 is like the door into this world, this amazing world of very, very vast teachings. When you hear the trainers sharing here, you see what I mean. They have been touched in different ways by these teachings, and they are so complete. It's like a whole diamond. It includes all of the facets. So MPA, Miripiri Academy in Amritsar, close to the Golden Temple. It's also located in the training grounds of where the 6th Guru, Guru Har Gobind, grew up. And this is where he was trained in his martial arts in Gatka. Also, the story of the Miripiri came to be. So Miri, it means the temporal power, the physical power in this material world. And Piri is the spiritual power. So this is the balance that we want to have in the world, both in this world, but not all of this world. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And we need to be able to manage, govern, succeed, excel in both realms, the spiritual world, but also the material world, here in this reality through this body. So this is where the whole concept of Miripiri started. And that's what makes it so powerful, besides the fact that Miripiri Academy has a very, very beautiful grounds, very wide sports area with lots of greenery. And if the weather is beautiful, we'll be spending a lot of time outside. From there, we traveled together to Rishikesh, which is up in the mountains, the beginning, the foothills of the Himalayas. A whole different scenery and environment there. This is where a lot of yogis would meditate from different traditions, right? Now, there are many types of yogic lineages, as you may know. The Raj Yoga, Kundalini Yoga comes from the lineage of the Sikh Dharma. But there's also a lot of yogis who come from other lineages. And we will explore a little bit more about Patanjali, the different styles of yoga when we are in Rishikesh, as well as practicing more pranayama, learning about the yogic lifestyle, and Kashyapa, who is an Ayurvedic doctor. He'll be coming to share with us all the wonders and beauty of Ayurveda, that how we can apply this to our life, because this is a core in understanding who we are and understanding how to take care of our body and our mind. So in Rishikesh, we'll be right in the center of Tapovan, which is the hub of this so-called capital of yoga, and it's by the river Ganges. So we will be doing some practices by the river in certain caves in the mountain, and also enjoying some of the city life of this beautiful town in Rishikesh. And then from there we'll travel to Anandpur Sahib, which is the place where Guru Gobind Singh created his army, and he created the institution of the Khalsa. The Khalsa being the culmination of all the teachings of the Sikh Dharma, the Sikh lineage, from starting with Guru Nanak all the way up to Guru Gobind Singh. He was the 10th Guru. And the Khalsa being the society of the pure ones who are here to serve the world and to support and protect all of those who cannot be protected. And this Khalsa consciousness is something that we are going to explore in depth as well, especially when we are in Anandpur Sahib, because it's there, it's in the air. And we will visit all these different gurdwaras and historical places there, where all of these events happened, where Guru Gobind Singh grew up, and where he gave the Amrit to those who became the Khalsa, the Panch Pyare. The beauty of Anandpur Sahib is that we are staying in Dashmesh Sadan, which is the home of Yogi Bhajan, the Sri Singh Sahib in Anandpur Sahib. It was built for him and for this sort of trainings. And it's a beautiful residence as well, with a lot of gardens around it. It's in a very peaceful area next to town, so we can even walk to town. And you can feel his essence, and Dashmesh Sadan is aligned with Keshgar Sahib, which is the main Gurdwara where the Khalsa was born. And you can see it, especially in the night, you can see the alignment. So all of these beautiful places charged with the history and the energy of these teachings. And ultimately, we will come back to Amritsar to close the training at MPA again. Now, this immersion is taking place in October and November, arriving on the 17th of October, and will finish on the 9th of November. But we also include some online modules, because it's very important to have also a follow-up. We will prepare and we'll start the training on October 5th with some foundation information about Kundalini Yoga, the basics, so that when you arrive to India, you'll be a little bit more prepared. And then after our India immersion, we will follow up with a few more topics, modules, so that you can really integrate, consolidate all of this in order to give it and teach it to others. This is what is essential, that wherever you are in the world, and we have already participants signing up from different areas of the world, you will become the lighthouse, that you can touch other people, you can serve, and you can see the light grow. Because we say, to be a Kundalini Yoga teacher, you need to create that radiance of the soul. You cannot just, it's not just giving instructions, lift your arms up, breathe this, do that. It really is something that we're teaching from our core, from our soul, and we need to have gone through that transformation to really ignite the light within ourselves, and we teach through that light. So this is what is important, that the training does by itself, by all of its different parts and combination of process and content and teachings and transformation and practices, the deep practices that we are going to do through the training. So we want you to share this in wherever you are in the world, that people will be touched by your presence themselves. Just by looking at you, you'll make people happy. You'll open up their soul. You'll remind them of their divine self. The training is certified by the Kundalini Research Institute, which is the body of certification that Yogi Bhajan created since the 1970s. And the training is according to all of the regulations and standards that the Kundalini Research Institute has. So you'll be receiving your manual, your books, which are in part of the training. And in total, there are 220 hours we need to cover that we are going to balance between practice and theory. There will be some homework involved. There's an exam at the end. And within the training, each participant is going to lead a class, a Kundalini Yoga class. We're going to give you feedback as well. Not only one class, but more than one class. So that we know that you will be ready. And every time someone is leading a class from the participants, it creates also a bond between the group. It's very beautiful to see each other giving feedback and supporting each other into how to do this better and how to become really that inspiring teacher. This is why we are giving time after the training so that you can practice a 40-day practice, a Kriya meditation that you can integrate, and we will have a lot of check-ins and support groups and a WhatsApp group and email list and everything that you need on the practical side as well to support your journey. And even when you finish your exam and you get your certificate, we want to be there for you. This is like a family that we are creating. This is one of the main reasons that we want to start this as part of the continuing education courses in MPA, that you can continue your journey. We are also offering level 2s here. So your journey begins with the level 1, but it continues. There's level 2s, there's level 3s. And we'll have more specialized courses as well as you grow on the journey, whether it's through music and kirtan, or whether it's through the experience of the Sikh Dharma. We're having Japji courses coming up. So this is the beginning. This is the door to a whole new world. And if you feel the calling, if you feel interested, if you feel that sort of need for awakening, need to connect, need to change something in your life, and you've made it this far, so in this video, so we want you to feel welcome, and we're here to support you and answer any of the questions that you may have, and we'll look forward to seeing you in October there in India and welcoming you at the airport. Sat Nam.